let's get started. And then as people continue to come in, I can admit them into the webinar. But well, thank you so much for joining us today for the second webinar that we've hosted so far. And today's topic is parent education discussion. And Caitlin, do I have control? Okay, good. So before we get started with the webinar content, I want to quickly introduce ourselves. So at Y Montessori, my name is Isabella, by the way, and I'm the founder and CEO of Y Montessori. And at Y Montessori, our mission is to advance Montessori education through innovative parent education, as well as powerful data storytelling. And with this mission in mind, we provided two separate services. The first one is Montopia. So Montopia is a research-backed parent education app that we designed for Montessori schools, focused on parent education and communication. And we're proudly to share that with all the schools that are now on Montopia, we're able to achieve over 85% of parent engagement rate, which is phenomenal. The second program we provide is Montessori Data Lens, where we basically collect, analyze, and visualize Montessori-related data into infographics, and we're trying to publish on a monthly basis to share a lot of interesting insights from our data analysis. And the hope is to get some interesting conversations going surrounding Montessori education, whether it's within the community or with the broader education and parent community. So we've done a lot of interesting work already. The infographics I put on the slide right now are the ones that we've done and published so far. But before we go into the details about the infographics we've published and a quick overview, I want to share a little bit about why we launched this program. So I'm coming from a data background, and as a Montessori mother, passionate about Montessori education, I faced the personal challenges of trying to understand my child's Montessori learning. And that kind of urged me to left my job as a data analyst and started the company to find out a solution to bridge the gap of parents want to know more about their child's learning and schools want to communicate the value of Montessori education to their parents. And while I was in the process of developing the application, I started engaged more with the community. And that's when I slowly found out that data has been mentioned a lot, almost in all the conferences I go to. And I'm curious to find out what kind of data is really needed and how can we help and support to advance the Montessori education through our data expertise. And that's when we decided to launch the data program early this year. And so far, we published 8 data infographics so far. And the first few ones we kind of focus on the higher level overview of the landscape of Montessori education in the US, whether it's private or public Montessori education. And slowly we kind of find our path to land on how do we use data visualization to communicate with parents about the benefit of Montessori education. And this is the topic for today. And we're very excited to share what kind of work that we've done and some interesting infographics that we've created so far. Before we start talking about the infographics that we're very excited to present today, let's meet my team. So we have a team of 5 people, including me, myself. Marguerite is going to join us in a little bit late, but Marguerite, she's been with us for the longest time. She co-created the data program since day one, and she has a very strong data background from UCSD, data science school. And we also have a few other team members. I'm going to hand it over to Caitlin.
All right, there we go. Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin Abilier. I am the head of data strategy here at Y Montessori. And a little bit about myself, like Marguerite and the rest of the data analysts on our team. I have pursued a bachelor's of data science at UCSD, and I'm currently working on a master's in computer science at UIUC with a focus on computational social science. So I'm really focusing on the use of big data and tech for social impact. And I'll hand it over to Bryden now.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Bryden Chan, and I'm a data analyst at Y Montessori. I'm currently studying data science at UC San Diego, and I've led a couple of data projects here at Y Montessori, including the September-October report which we're going to present today.
Hi, my name is Vivian Lin, and I'm also a data analyst here at Y Montessori, currently pursuing data science at UC San Diego. And I've been working on the September-October report.
Yay! So, with our team introduced, and thank you, Isabella, for introducing Montopia and why Montessori, let's dive right into our reports and analysis. So, with the mission to advance parent education in Montessori, as data analysts, we wanted to know more about the parent community to target their needs more effectively. We gathered nearly 100 responses from Montessori parents currently enrolling their children in Montessori schools, tailoring the survey to explore how parents were first introduced to Montessori, their self-assessed knowledge of the approach, the resources they rely on, etc. So if we click onto this, we'll find our Tableau report, which all of you can access on our website. And before we dive into the nitty-gritty insights, let's start by getting to know a bit about the parent-family communities we surveyed. A majority of families are enrolled in the primary program for 2.5 to 6-year-olds, and more than 60% have spent up to 2 years in their Montessori program. As for parents' first introduction to Montessori education, we see here that 42% were introduced through friends or family, 30% through Montessori schools or educators, 16% online, or 11% other. So all in all, this goes to show that a strong parent community can promote growth and outreach to new parents. One of the main takeaways from this survey is that the number one challenge we found for the parents of the Montessori community was a lack of understanding and clarity of what their child is learning in their day-to-day classroom activities. Yet interestingly, when we asked, have you actively sought to learn more, only 56% of parents are actively seeking to learn more about Montessori, while 44% aren't. Though almost 50% of parents don't actively seek to learn more, all of our parents are concerned and deeply care about their child's learning in the classroom. The most effective parent education solution with this all in mind would be breaking down Montessori methodology into tiny bite-sized pieces of knowledge embedded into learning about their child's lessons, allowing parents to actively learn more about their child's daily activities, which is that main challenge here, but they're also passively taking in more knowledge about Montessori as a whole. But why is parent education so important in the first place? Looking here, current knowledge of Montessori, we see that all parents self-rated their knowledge of Montessori at a 5 or higher, with the majority, 28%, ranking themselves at an 8. At a first glance, it seems our parents feel like they're well educated, so maybe they need no further resources than the already existing ones. However, if we filter for those at the lower end of the scale, ranking themselves at a 5, we can see that the rest of these visualizations have filtered for those responses, and those who rank themselves on that lower end at a 5 care more about a school's reputation when considering how to choose a school for their child. Meanwhile, those at the very top at a 9 or 10, rather than prioritizing reputation in their school considerations, reputation falls drastically, and we see safety, staff, and facilities as the top 3. Methodology, meanwhile, has jumped to the middle here, whereas with those who rank themselves at a 5, methodology was much lower. So what's the main takeaway here? Beyond the school's staff and structure, parent education is the next critical step for retention in Montessori schools. The more parents understand Montessori, the more they value it as a priority for their child and their child's education. But how can schools bridge this gap if parents can't always attend events? So unfiltering all our data visualizations here, we see that the most helpful learning resources for parents are online resources, and majority, regardless of Montessori knowledge, have no time or scheduling conflicts that prevent them from attending school events. So these two visualizations down here. Excuse me. Given that everyone cares about their child's education, but most parents don't show up due to logistical barriers and rely on online resources instead, our first innovative parent education solution at Y Montessori was Montopia, which Isabella has mentioned before, and allows parents to receive updates on their child's everyday learning while still learning about the Montessori methodology behind it. and it has an over 80% parent engagement rate. And with these findings, our app, and all the research we've done so far, this then motivated us to learn and research more for our parent communities, leading us into our last 3 months of work, supporting parent education through literature. So before we dive into this, do we have any questions so far on the parent survey? Feel free to unmute, type something in the chat. And for any Facebook viewers out there, I do have the chat open as well. Any questions? All right. If anyone comes up with any questions in a few moments, oh, sorry, I thought I saw a question. If anyone comes up with a question in the next few moments, feel free to send it in the chat, and one of our other data analysts can answer. But I will move us along into supporting parent education through literature. Do, 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 do. Sorry about that. So the first book that I want to introduce is Mapping Montessori Materials for AI Competency Development by Kate Broughton. Luckily, we're honored to have Kate Broughton, the author of this book, present at today's webinar. So if you have any questions for her on the book or where to find it, feel free to send her a message in the chat. I'm sure she'll be happy to respond. But I'll give us viewers a quick overview. So her upcoming book explores how existing Montessori lessons and learning materials like the Pink Tower, bead chains, or the movable alphabet can help children build the same core competencies needed to understand and use AI responsibly in today's modern world. The book connects Montessori's century-old emphasis on hands-on exploration, abstraction, and pattern recognition to modern AI competencies such as data structuring and analysis, AI ethics and self-reflection, and sequential logic. She argues that many foundational skills for AI literacy are already deeply embedded into the Montessori pedagogy, and she goes on to map classic Montessori materials and specific lessons to these real AI competencies in some chapters, all neatly formatted to standards with specified age groups, prerequisites, etc. Collaborating with Kate very closely on this report that we will be presenting later, we used her book in our AI competency and Montessori education report. And again, if you have any questions for us or for Kate, feel free to message us in the chat. But I will move us along into our next book. Vivian will take it away with the Montessori, the science behind the genius.
Thank you, Caitlin, for introducing the first book. And the next book that I'll be introducing is Montessori, The Science Behind the Genius by Angeline Stoll Leelard, where she discusses the approaches developed by Dr. Maria Montessori over her years of working with children in psychiatric clinics through trial and error, and explains why one might prefer them over the teaching methods in traditional public schools that most other people, including ourselves, are familiar with. The Montessori methods, as described in the book, aims to foster independence, critical thinking, and leadership skills by giving children more autonomy to decide what activities they want to do, as opposed to traditional schools where adults, whether that's the parents or teachers, are more involved in planning the child's daily schedule and routine. She ends the book by addressing myths and concerns critics and parents may have with the Montessori methods in hopes to clarify the true intentions and inclusivity of the Montessori system.
Alrighty, since Marguerite is running a little late, she'll be joining us soon. We'll be saving the AI competency and Montessori education report for last. And so we'll be diving straight into our new upcoming report that nobody has seen yet, comparing traditional versus Montessori through research. So I'll let Vivian Bryden take it away with this report.
Thank you, Caitlin. All right, so for our September and October report, we created a dashboard comparing traditional and Montessori education based on research from Montessori, The Science Behind the Genius by Angeline Lillard. We noticed that this book provides a lot of research and evidence and studies when discussing the difference between traditional and Montessori education. So we thought it would be a great idea to compile all of this research into a data set and see if there's any interesting insight we can find. So also, a lot of these categories you're going to see are created by us based on our intuition from reading the book. So, and we will also provide our definitions of these categories throughout the dashboard. So yeah, I'll hand it over to Vivian to talk about the first half of the dashboard.
Yeah, thank you, Brighton, for giving us a brief introduction into what we did this past month, and I'll introduce you guys to the dashboard. So the dashboard starts by introducing what is a Montessori versus traditional school. According to the book, as mentioned earlier, traditional schools are based on a factory model and they emphasize a lot on standardization, basically a one size fits all. One main characteristic of traditional schools is that they are very structured at a macro level in terms of everyone having to do a specific task at a certain time, and the main goal is to create potential factory workers instead of thriving intellects. Montessori schools, on the other hand, fosters critical thinking and leadership skills in the underprivileged communities, aiming to bridge the socioeconomic gaps. It turns out that while Dr. Montessori was working with children in psychiatric clinics, her methods helped them to pass the standardized tests that are meant for quote unquote normal children. Moving on to the domains, the 5 domains that we come up with while reading the book are cognitive, academic, behavioral, social, and environmental. On the left here, we have a heat map with the hover tooltip showing the number of evidence that belongs in each domain / pairs of domains. The squares along the diagonal here, like this way, shows the number of evidence that belongs to one domain. So if I hover over academic, the tooltip tells me that 140 pieces of evidence belong to only the academic domain. The squares off the diagonal shows the number of evidence that belong in 2 domains. For example, if I hover over behavioral academic or academic behavioral, the tooltip will tell me that 7 pieces of evidence belong in both the academic and behavioral domains. And yeah, it's just the same number because it's basically the same 2 domains. And then onto the next page, we have the different types of evidence that we found, which are materials, examples, and studies. Over on the left, we have a pie chart that shows the breakdown of the 3 different types of evidence. And on the bottom here, we included the stars to filter based on approach and these icons to filter based on domains. So if I click on this star for Montessori and let's say I want to see like the academic domains, this will just show that 43.80% of the evidence in the book that we collected are from studies, and 10.22% are from materials, and 45.99% are from examples within, and these are the evidence within the Montessori approach and academic domain. And then next, we will be talking about the comparisons, and I will hand it over to Brighton.
All right. Thank you, Vivian. So this is the page for the 20 comparisons that we came up with and which we grouped all of the evidence based on. So just to name a few, there's curriculum, classroom environment, personal interest, technology, and so on. So for this webinar, we would only present the curriculum comparison, which includes how instructional content is designed, structured, and presented. So this is our dashboard for the curriculum comparison. So the main feature of this dashboard is our drill down tool, which is split into 4 different levels. So it starts with the comparison category, in this case, curriculum, and it eventually brings you to individual evidence from the book. So the first level, it's curriculum. So this is one of the 20 comparisons that we defined and grouped based our list of evidence into. And then from curriculum, you're gonna move on to the second level, which is the title. So these titles are more specific and deeper dives into the curriculum comparison. So for curriculum alone, we have 6 titles, including curricular coherence and continuity, language and real-world application, narrative and imaginative learning, observational learning, transfer of knowledge across contexts, and use of real life, meaningful context, and prior knowledge. So as you can see in these tooltips, we also included a summary of what each title represents so that we can clarify what we mean by the title. Moving on to the third level is the approach for Montessori and traditional. So for example, we have this node which says each time slot is assigned a different topic. So that's actually a traditional that's what traditional schools usually do. So you can see the nodes underneath this node is all traditional, which is represented by these blue nodes. Whereas when you go to the next one, which is Montessori education makes connections across disciplines, obviously this is going to be the Montessori approach. So these nodes underneath it are going to be yellow. Yeah, so you might be wondering why we didn't color code the nodes on the third level. The reason is because some of these uh, third level nodes includes both Montessori and traditional approaches. So you can see there are both blue and yellow nodes. So that's why we didn't really color code the third level. But yeah, going back to the example just now, you got each time slot is assigned a different topic for traditional, and for Montessori, obviously, it makes connections across different disciplines. So what's cool about the fourth level is obviously you can see traditional is blue, but if you click on this node, the fourth level nodes, it's actually gonna bring you to the book itself. So this page 130 is where we found this evidence right here. So this is a really cool tool where you can actually refer back to the book, refer back to the example that you're really interested in. Yeah, so this is just a really cool feature. Um, yeah, so for the tooltips for the last level of notes, you can also see like the domains and type of evidence for that particular example. So that if you're interested in that, for example, you can just click in and just read that part of the book. And apart from the drill down tool, we also included a couple of visualizations regarding the curriculum comparison. So you can see here we got a bar chart comparing the number of evidences that the number of Montessori evidences compared to traditional ones. So you can see there's 72% of the evidences that are Montessori in curriculum, and there's only 27. So you can see there's a lot more Montessori evidences provided in the book compared to traditional. And moving on to the type of evidence, uh, so there's 42%, which is part of study, and 45 that's example. So these are pretty evened up. Whereas for material, there's 11%. So I kind of want for curriculum itself, I kind of want to highlight material because I think for the entire data set, only 6% of the evidences are no are materials, but for curriculum alone, it's 11%. So that's more than normal. So that's why we're gonna go through the materials that are included in the curriculum comparison later. And for domain, we also had a pie chart for domain. Obviously, it's it's about curriculum, so I'm not surprised that it's mainly academic and cognitive domain here. 74% of the evidences in curriculum are actually both academic and cognitive. Yep. so these are the visualizations we have. But moving on to materials. So for curriculum, I think we have 6 different pages of Montessori materials mentioned in the book. And yeah, you can see the first 3 pages are actually materials that are built on prior knowledge. So for example, you can see here, we got the binomial and trinomial cube that was mentioned in the book. Uh, the book mentions that these cubes were first brought up in primary education and were brought up again in elementary in order to teach the children math. So yeah, other materials in this field include geometry cabinet, glass beads, fraction insets, and botany cabinets, grammar symbols, and metal insects. So all these materials are brought up from the book, so it'd be really cool to like go back to the book and look at it. And then the next type of materials that the book mentioned about curriculum are materials that makes abstract concepts tangible. So the example that it listed out were the use of scaling triangle puzzles to teach children the Pythagorean theorem. Next part would be vocabulary, I believe. Yep. So in the book, they kind of mentioned that the students are given different types of plants and they will have to identify the different parts of the plant to learn new vocabulary. So that's where vocabulary comes in terms of Montessori education. And lastly, the book also mentioned how materials connect between social and geometry, and this makes abstract concepts more meaningful. So the book mentions about the use of paper dolls to let children understand what convergence and divergence means, but at the same time, it also makes them aware about the social connections between people. So yeah, so these are just like the materials that the book highlighted about curriculum that Montessori is really affecting the learning of the children. So uh, yeah, I believe that's about it for this visualization. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat or just unmute. Yeah.
If no questions, let's move to the AI dashboard.
Alrighty, thank you, Bryden and Vivian, for all those awesome insights on our newest report. And we'll go ahead and go a little backwards now to the report before this. The AI Competency in Montessori Education Report, which will be presented by Marguerite.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marguerite Church, and I'm a data analyst here. I had another meeting, but I finally made it. Happy to be here. I led our AI report, which was based on the book Mapping Montessori Materials for AI Competency Development by Kate Broughton, and we are lucky enough to have her join us in this Zoom today. So heading into the report, we start just by defining AI or artificial intelligence, what it is. So artificial intelligence is the effort to create machines that can think and learn in ways similar to humans. And very recently, it's been shaping the way we work, communicate, and live. Become increasingly popular in recent years. And to combat this or try to find ways to live with it in the future, we need to turn to education because kids will be the ones using AI the most. And to do this, Broughton found 3 sources that list AI competencies that kids will need. They come from McKinsey, who highlighted cognitive skills like critical thinking as important, UNESCO, which added AI-specific areas such as human-centered mindsets being important, and the World Economic Forum, which emphasized global citizenship, And in the bottom here, we list all of the AI competencies she came up with that can be found naturally in a Montessori education. So I'll give you a minute to look at those. We have things as sequential logic, advanced computational thinking, digital citizenship, and cause and effect. So there's a wide range, very technical, not super technical, but they all play a part in educating children for a future of AI. And going to our next page, we have the direct ties to Montessori. And we can see that a Montessori education can provide a strong foundation because it emphasizes hands-on learning, independence, and adaptability, which are all skills that match the needs of an AI-driven world. On the right, we have all of the competencies and then the ages that they're present in a Montessori classroom. So this top one, social intelligence and empathy, is introduced at the very beginning, age 0, and then is found in the classroom all the way up to 18. And then we have some that are introduced later at age 12, and these are the more technical computer-based skills such as data visualization or algorithm optimization. And we can see that Montessori education offers a counterbalance to all this technical computer-driven things by grounding learning in observation, exploration, and human growth. Moving on to our next page, we dive a bit deeper into the lessons that were mapped. So there were like 7 to 9 lessons mapped for each of the 4 age groups here. You can see the age groups at the top. And all of these lessons were also mapped to distinct curriculum areas. So most of them had 2 or 3 curriculum areas that came with the lesson. These feature things such as practical life, sensorial, or cognitive development. And you can see there's a wide range of curriculum areas covered in these lessons, even though they all do connect back to the AI competencies. This red one here is artificial intelligence itself, and it's only actually a curriculum area for 2 lessons. So we can see that a lot of these lessons don't directly feature AI, but still help children develop the skills they'll need to work with it in the future in a lot of different curriculum areas and ways. And then this chart down here features the screen usage found in each lesson. Almost half of these lessons are screen-free, so children are using traditional Montessori materials, not using computers or tablets or anything yet, but still developing those AI skills. And then 12.5% have early screen use, another 12.5 have screen use as practical life, and a little of over a quarter have discerning screen use for research and creativity. And then from here, we break off into specific age groups. So we have a shelf which lists all the competencies for that age group. In the free version of our report, you can see the first lesson on the shelf, and then we also have a paid version where users will be able to see all of these competencies and lessons. And we also have a summary page distinct for each age group, so I'll go there first. It features a word cloud of the language to use in each lesson. So we can see for years 0 to 3, the teaching language starts with sensory and action-based words such as sound, move, and jump, and introduces shapes such as circles and triangles. And then this is the same chart as before, just zoomed in a little so we can specifically focus on ages 0 to 3. And we can see that most of these lessons have the curriculum areas of cognitive development, sensorial, and practical life, while also featuring early math, motor development, and social emotional development. So now we can go back to the shelf by clicking here, and we'll get to see what one of the lessons looks like broken down. So going into the cause and effect lesson, this is where we see how you could teach this in the Montessori classroom. We begin with prerequisites. So for a lot of the 0 to 3 age group lessons, there's not going to be any prerequisites because this is their first education. So no prerequisites required. And then presentation, this sets the tone for how to share the lesson. For example, for cause and effect, you'd want to have a calm space. Language, this was also analyzed in the word cloud. For this lesson, we use words such as when, because, push, shake, press, which makes sense, matches with the cause and effect, which is trying to be taught. It's a screen-free activity. Points of interest, we can see children are fascinated by the predictable feedback they receive. And then hovering over these symbols gives the curriculum area. So here we have sensorial and cognitive development. And then direct aims supports prediction and understanding of outcomes. Indirect aims strengthen observation, focus, and logical thinking. Control of error is built into the materials. If they don't get a result, they'll try something else. It also provides extensions to see how they could do this outside of the lesson. It involves water play, rolling objects, lift the flap, or sound books. Follow-up work is similar with observing repetition, excitement, anticipation, problem solving, and management. And then any notes for the guide that might be useful. So for this one, it's cause and effect understanding, supports critical thinking and system awareness for future learning in tech-rich environments. And then we have an example of a material that could be used, and clicking the material will actually go to a site where you could purchase it for your own classroom. So I won't go into any more pages because they're all just the same lessons, and they all pretty much follow this format. Once again, this is the free version, one lesson per age group, and then our paid version, which you can find on our website, is available for purchase, and that will have all the lessons. So yeah, I'll open it up to any questions right now. Okay, I'll hand it back to Caitlin.
We can wrap up the session then with final Q&A. Are there any reports, that anyone wants us to go back to? Any questions you came up with for previous reports that you'd like to ask now? Feel free to ask away, even if you are on Facebook with the 20-second delay. Alrighty. Facebook Live has caught up now. If there's no questions, then thank you so much, everyone, for attending today. These are some links to learn more about Montopia, the Data Lens program, or to contact us about any questions you may have. Isabella, are there any concluding words you want to say?
No, great work, team. And then I want to extend a sincere thank you for Kate, working with us for the AI dashboard and joining us today. Thank you so much. Okay, bye everyone.